Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, my beautiful hot messes. My name is Mistress Lavender, also known as the Phenom Dictator, and welcome to my YouTube channel where I read. Today we're reading The Happiness Advantage. I'm on page 20. I guess technically, I don't know. Oh, not 2019. I'm tripping. I can't count. I'm on page 19, and it's by Sean Anker. And let's just begin. I have a pencil just to underline any words we don't know. The happiness advantage at work. Flying over the savannas of Zimbabwe in the fall of 2008, I suddenly began to feel nervous. How could I lecture to people on happiness research in a country that had just been devastated by the complete implosion of their financial system? Not to mention one ruled by a dictator, Robert Mungbe. When I landed in the city of Harar, I was taken to dinner by some local business leaders. In the dim candlelight, one of them asked me, Sean, how many trillionaires do you know? I said jokingly, very few. He then said, raise your hand if you were a trillionaire. Everyone on the floor at the dinner table raised their hands. Seeing my shocked surprise, another person explained, don't be impressed. The very last time I used a Zim dollar, I spent 1 trillion to buy a chocolate bar. Zimbabwe had been devastated by the complete collapse of its currency. All the financial institutions were struggling to survive. The country had even moved to a barter system for a while. In the midst of this, I worried that my research would fall on ears deafened by the concussions of repeated crisis. But to my surprise, I found people more eager than ever to hear about the research behind the principles. They wanted to bounce back from this challenge stronger than before, and they knew they needed a whole new set of tools to do so. Page 20. The real world. While I've while I've since found that my 7 principles of positive psychology have extraordinary applications in the workplace in both good times and bad, the economic collapse very quickly crystallized the need, not just to help businesses and professionals preserve their well-being, but to help them maximize their energy, productivity, and performance when they needed it the most. They recognized it too, for I suddenly found many once invincible businesses reaching out their hands for help. Within 1 year, I had spoken to businesses in 40 countries across 5 continents and found that the same principles that predicated success at Harvard worked everywhere I went. For a boy from Wonka who hadn't traveled much, it was a humbling experience to meet so many people across the world, each with a different story of happiness, hardship, and resilience. It was also a time of great learning. I learned more about happiness during my travels to Africa and the Middle East in the midst of a crisis than my 12 years of sheltered study. The fruit of that labor and research in this book, from Wall Street traders to Tanzanian school teachers to salespeople in Rome, they all could use the now cri- wait. They all could use the now crisis temper principles to propel themselves forward. Where am I? Oh. In October 2008, I was brought in to American Express to speak to a group of vice presidents. AIG had just become a ward for the Federal Reserve. Lyman Brothers were gone under. The Dow was at the record low. So when I walked into the room at Amex, the mood was grim. Tired looking executives looking at me ashen faced, and their blackberries usually chirping incessantly at the start of these at the start of these events had fallen silent. Massive layoffs, reorganization, and a decision to restructure into a bank that had been announced 30 minutes before my 90-minute talk on happiness. This was not going to be a receptive audience, or so I thought. I assumed, just as I had in Zimbabwe, that the last thing a group of people so distraught and unnerved would be interested in hearing about a positive psychology. Yet again, it turned out to be one of the most engaged and receptive groups I had ever encountered. The 90 minutes turned into nearly 3 hours as executives canceled appointments and postponed meetings. Like the nearly 1,000 students who showed up for the first Harvard class on the subject, these highly sophisticated financiers were hungry to understand the new science of happiness and how to bring them success in their jobs and careers. The earliest adapters of the happiness advantage were the world's largest banks, as they were the first to get hit. I began researching and teaching the principles in this book to thousands of senior leaders, managing directors, and CEOs at some of the world's biggest and most battered financial institutions. Then I began to branch out to people and companies in all other sectors who had been hit hard by the meltdown. These were not happy times nor happy audiences, but regardless of their industry, company, or rank in the organization, rather than resistance, I found people most universally open to learning how to use positive psychology to rethink the way they did their work. I'm stopping there. So I'm stopping on page 21. I know I read 2 pages. Leave me alone. So the next page will be the bottom of page 21, insulating against stress. Again, my name is Mistress Lavender. Thank you so much for joining my reading YouTube. If you want to look at my other YouTubes for my main content and my eating content, everything will be listed down below. Go ahead and support me, like, comment, and subscribe. And if it's your birthday, happy birthday. And if it's not, I'm just happy you're live with me another day. Thank you so much for joining. And again, we were reading The Happiness Advantage starting on page 21. Whoop, whoop, go books.